to another episode of Small Battalion. What a time we're living in. Toronto is now in its third lockdown, like other places in the world, but something sinister is happening in our city. A real estate agent asked me the other day if I liked my neighborhood. And I said, well, what's the point of living in a city when there's nothing to do? I used to love my neighborhood. Now, I don't feel so comfortable anymore. And so we bide our time and pray that we will emerge from this soon, but all signs are pointing to the opposite. Last summer, we had a couple of months of outdoor shows, but I don't see that happening this summer, and it does hurt my heart. So what do we do, and how do we live through this? We're being bombarded by a barrage of propaganda 24/7, a ticker tape of case counts, test counts, vaccine counts, death counts. Our democracy crumbling in front of our very eyes. The freedoms we took for granted being slowly eroded. Our government acting outside of its constitutional authority. It is truly troubling and is looking a lot like other fascist takeovers. There's too much wrong about this. Too much doesn't add up. But one of the things that is central in my life is meditation. I practice kundalini yoga, which is the king of yogas, the first yoga, the yoga that all the other yogas originated from. The way we practice kundalini is the same way we practiced it 10,000 years ago. According to 3HO, kundalini yoga is the yoga of awareness. It is a dynamic, powerful tool that is designed to give you an experience of your soul. And indeed, that is the truth. 3HO goes on. In Kundalini Yoga, we harness the mental, physical, and nervous energies of the body and put them under the domain of the will, which is the instrument of the soul. This technology precisely and consciously combines breath, mudra, eye focus, mantra, body locks, and postures to balance the glandular system, strengthen the nervous system, expand lung capacity, and purify the blood. It brings balance to the body, mind, and soul. Kundalini Yoga is not a religion. When we apply the technology of Kundalini Yoga to our bodies and minds, it has the effect of uplifting the spirit. It is for everyone. It is universal and non-denominational. I'll tell you that before this episode, I was depressed. I'm not saying I don't get depressed, but I kind of keep a good level, but I was depressed today and I did a meditation and it picked me up and it does it all the time. Kundalini Yoga is a yoga for householders, for people who have to cope with the daily challenges and stresses of holding jobs, raising families, and managing businesses. It is a path for everyone who wants the skills to cope successfully with the challenges of our times. Kundalini Yoga was kept very secret until 1969, when Yogi Bhajan brought it out of secrecy and taught it openly in order to prepare humanity for this very moment. The moment where we pass from the Piscean age to the Aquarian age. This ancient technology of Kundalini Yoga, says 3HO, gives us the awareness and the fortitude to make this a smooth transition. Oh, I don't know. Maybe that it doesn't feel smooth. Some days, yes, but One of the meditations that I love practicing is Japji. It's the Sikh morning prayer for the soul. Japji introduces you to yourself, says Yogi Bhajan. Guru Nanak, who was born on April 15th, 1469, gave us this prayer. He founded Sikhism and is one of the first of 10 Sikh gurus. It is said that Guru Nanak traveled across Asia, teaching people the message of Ik Onkar, or one God who dwells in every one of his creations and constitutes eternal truth. Based on this, Guru Nanak would set up unique spiritual, social, and political platforms based on equality, fraternal love, goodness, and virtue. So Japji is a 31-minute prayer, and we talked about it in a previous episode, which is truly powerful. Here's the first pauri or verse of the prayer.
Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh. Soche soch na hove je sochi lakhwar. Chupe chup na hove je lahir hal avatar. Bukya bukna teri je bana purya par. Sahasa syana pa lakh hoye ta ek na chala nal. Kiv sachiara hoye kiv kude tutte pal. Hukum rajai chalana nanak likhya nal.
One universal creator, God, the name is truth. creative being personified, no fear, no hatred, image of the undying, beyond birth, self-existent by Guru's grace. Chant and meditate. True in the primal beginning, true throughout the ages, true here and now, O Nanak, forever and ever truth. So Yogi Bhajan says, Guru Nanak gave us Japji. Jap means repeated reciprocal creative power. Jap means when we recite and what we recite. It takes mind, body, and soul to recite. Jap requires consciousness, intelligence, and personality. It requires soul, mind, and body. Ji means the inner soul, the inner self, the eternal self, the excellent self, the infinite self. I already feel better. I was depressed. I mean, what was I thinking about? Honest to God. Ji energy is what the universal energy is. And Guru Nanak gave you Jap of the Ji. That's why the name is Japji. It is recitation of that Ji. It is called multiple soul. It's called infinite soul. And so when we repeat Japji daily, we attune our soul to the universal consciousness that Guru Nanak embodied. And this poem teaches us to live in consciousness on this planet. So I have a very special guest this episode, my first guest. And who better to be my first guest than Joanna Baron? She is the founder of the Baroness Institute, a magical leadership institute that teaches self-sovereignty, creativity, and re-enchantment using meditative technologies, divination, archetypes, and myths. She's a former criminal lawyer and a longtime kundalini yoga practitioner and teacher. Welcome, Joanna Baron. So happy to have you here.
Yay, small battalion. I'm so excited. And I loved your preamble. By the way, it's healthy, happy, holy. It is 3HO. And Yogi Bhajan said it's 3HO because you have 3 holes in your head, your 2 ears, and your mouth. Or no, he had something where he was like, your head is holy. Anyways, Yogi Bhajan had all kinds of weird, little idioms, which I'm sure we'll get into. But I loved your Japji introduction. That was very beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much. Did you ever meet Yogi Bhajan? Did you study with him?
No, he passed away in 2004. And so, yeah, I was pretty young then. So no, unfortunately I didn't. But we'll have a lot to say about him. I have had connections with him, like on the astral plane. He's definitely come to me in dreams, and I have a complex relationship with him. As I don't know if you want to get into it, but he was a complex guy.
Yes, and I just recently learned of a lot of that complexity just recently, and I was shocked. And it was kind of at the same time as other spiritual gurus that I'd been following. People kept saying like their words though are from God and it's uninterrupted. Their actions, I guess show us that we're all just like, flesh and blood, and that's what, and I think it's like meant to show us the delusions that we have about the world, right?
Yeah, I guess we'll get right into it, but kind of my main takeaway, because for me, Yogi Bhajan and learning about, so to fill everybody in, if they don't know, Yogi Bhajan was basically what precipitated this was in January 2020, a book was published by a longtime Yogi Bhajan student and secretary named Premka called White Bird in a Golden Cage. And it was very credible. Like there'd been rumors, I've been in this kundalini scene for a long time, which we'll talk about. So I had always heard rumors, but this was like, okay, his secretary, who was well respected for 20 years, this is like very credible. You can't really ignore it at this point. And then Facebook groups started popping up where old timers from the 3HO community, because it was actually Yogi Bhajan came first here to Toronto and then to California, and there were ashrams and businesses. And so all these Facebook groups started popping up, and just like that set the floodgates of similar stories. And then I guess this fall, an independent investigatory agency called the Olive Branch put out a report where they did independent investigation. And basically, I used to be a criminal lawyer, and if my client came to me with these types of allegations, which were corroborated, no chance for collusion between the victims, very similar stories, I would be like, you got to do a guilty plea. Like, sorry. So I all of which is to say, I believe the women 100%. I will never forget their stories. But the other thing that was happening that was more personally effective to me and my teachers is that I did my teacher training with a an amazing community called Rama Institute. Their first studios in Venice. They have studios in Mallorca and New York. And like the head teacher was my primary teacher and was a huge influence on me. And that community has taken the stance of like, no, this is a conspiracy. This is all like the Kali Yuga, the Dark Age. All of this is made up. And just like, it's been a jaw-dropping denial. And for me, the irony, so obviously I've distanced myself from that community because I just think it's so unconscionable, really, to like bury your head in the sand. I understand the fear of people dropping the practice, but I think we don't have to do that. Maybe we'll talk about that. But the whole point of Kundalini yoga is to live as sovereign humans in the Aquarian age and not submit ourselves to religious hierarchies. And these people who are like, no, our dear leader, like they are proving the fucking point. Like, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to use your faculties of intuition and intellect and be able to parse out what's real from what's true. So those guys are like in some weird, like old Christian hierarchical thing. And I don't think it's going to work out very well for them. God bless them though. They, I got a lot of wisdom from them. So that has been even more of a trip for me.
I had gotten a membership to Rama and then I just couldn't. I don't know. I just couldn't. In fact, the meditation I just did before here was that, the prosperity one, like hara go binde, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I because I haven't done it in a long time and I didn't remember the sound current, like, and then I was like, I'll just go to her YouTube thing and like, yeah, God bless her for sure. But I knew that, like, I felt that nobody even told me that they had denied it, but I was like, something's a little bit weird here.
Oh yeah, they put out a whole like movie on YouTube that looks like it was made on Windows 95 called The Futile Flow of Fate, which is basically gaslighting the allegations.
Wow.
So, I mean, Guru Jagat is an amazing teacher. And as I say, you don't curse your teachers, but we are going in separate paths. Let's say that.
Well, I think, when you bring up the whole thing about like these hierarchical organizations like religion, right? When I remember when the stuff came out about Michael Jackson, right? Like, oh my God, of all the stuff that, has happened. And the same thing with Louis C.K., who's in the comedy community. People were so upset. And it was like, yeah, but it's because you praised him like a god when you should have been praising God the whole time. These are just men, these are people living out their karma. And yeah, while it's horrible, it's like what I'm listening, like right now, what I'm taking in from this one guru. I don't know if you know him. His name is Shania Mutri.
I don't think so.
His truth right now, it's just blowing me away. And he's like, we're going from this ego consciousness to this light consciousness. So, what we need to do is we have to forgive everybody, even if, and I'm having that hard time too, with especially with what's going on now and this is something that I, for viewers out there, Joanna does one-on-one work. And also she founded her institute. So we've done work together. And so like, I'm in this place of like, I got to get past seeing these culprits and feeling like this, like they're ruling me, like I it's very oppressive. And I know that I'm helping to create it, but right now it's so overwhelming that anyways, that's where I'm at right now. And I want to forgive them too. And sort of imagine, like, I was thinking, like, I was applying the myth to Bill Gates, for example. I was like, must have the savior archetype. Part of him has that savior archetype. Like, because does he believe that he's doing good? He must in some way. I don't know. It's so insane.
Yeah, I don't know about that guy. I just saw that he refused to send, I don't know what it is, the raw materials for poor countries to make vaccines. So I'm like, that does throw a wrench in the conspiracy theory that he's just trying to microchip all of humanity. He's just a greedy capitalist, let's be honest.
Yeah, he really is. I mean, I think, I don't know what, like, we won't have to get into the vaccine, but like just learning about everything that he's Like I had it, one of my episodes of my podcast was called Food Dictators, where I look at GMOs and the food dictators, right? And
Yeah.
he's one of them.
Yeah.
And they took it down. YouTube took it down, citing medical misinformation. But we appealed it, and I was like, this is not about medicine; it's about food. Note the title. But in that episode, I included a banned video of Gates, like chronicling like his vaccination rollouts in India and Africa, and it's like, yo, you look at that stuff, and you're like, how you can't deny. It's like with Yogi Bhajan. It's like there's too much evidence to that shows us these vaccines that he's been putting around the planet have done so much harm. And now here's a new vaccine. I don't know. It just goes against everything I feel in my soul. And then I'm seeing everybody, wanting to get vaccinated, and like, it upsets me, and I don't want to judge, but like, it's all these.
We better not talk about that, because then your video will get
taken down. That's okay. I edit this stuff.
Yeah.
But it'll be good. It'll be good if it gets taken down. It'll just be more story.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but these archetypes, right? We could talk about, maybe this is a good time to talk about this, what you teach in that way, and what do archetypes mean? Because right now on the planet, we have these archetypes that people are looking towards, either for salvation or as a way of blame. Like, you're oppressing me, you're another Hitler, this is the same story happening over again. So yeah, anyways.
Yeah, well, then maybe we should talk a little bit about sort of my trajectory of teaching and how I got to this point, because it does have to do with this Yogi Bhajan controversy in a roundabout way. So I was doing yoga since I was a kid. I stumbled into a kundalini studio in Montreal when I was like 19. It was in French. It was really weird. It was like a really weird Kriya with whistling, like probably not the best Kriya for like your first time. And I had been teaching and trained in Ashtanga. So I was like, what the hell is this? It was like whistling and turning. But I felt amazing afterwards. So I was like, I don't know what that was, but I feel really good. But I didn't really stick with it at that point. And then about 7 or 8 years later, I was just finishing law school, pretty burnt out, went into I have my Saturn in Scorpio, so it's like your taskmaster. So I definitely went into a very Saturnian phase in that phase of my life, and I stumbled on Kundalini yoga again. I was super fried and burnt out and unhappy, and it transformed me. I had in Kabbalah, you call it Tifereth. It's like, the transcendent function or holy guardian angel. Like I achieved like a spontaneous awakening experience. It's really what it felt like. It felt like my crown of my head was exploding. And what was crazy was that it lasted. Most people are like, you have these experiences and that's it. But no, I was permanently changed and still am. My energy, my metabolism. I always love to tell this story because people are like, but I dropped like 15 pounds and I was eating more. It was just like my body shifted into a different vibration. And then like everything in my world, the way my world orbited me was different. It was like I started to attract a very much higher caliber of men and of relationships and money. And so I was just like, I'm staying with this Kundalini yoga stuff.
I'm with you.
I have practiced every day since that day and went to do my teacher training, let's see, maybe 6 years ago, and I've been teaching. But then where I started to kind of build out my body of work was I started to realize that one of the limitations of the Kundalini practice is that, and some people will find this controversial because you can certainly have like a Shakti awakening, but it's a very masculine practice. It's very structured. It's very focused on projecting. It's very like everything is prescribed, usually like where your hands are, where your eyes are. And I had wandered into a breathwork class at some point, I don't know, maybe in 2017. And that was the missing piece. Breathwork is much more feminine. You are like deeply embodying, you are breathing into your belly. And at the same time, you're having these absolutely mind-blowing experiences in consciousness. I mean, just this morning, I was on a call with a colleague of mine who bought one of my courses. And she said, I did an ayahuasca ceremony in the jungle in Costa Rica, and I'm getting better trips from your breath work than from that.
I can attest to it. I can attest to it. I met Joanna like during the pandemic. So we've never physically met. It's kind of, I don't even think of it that way. Like I see you and I'm like, yeah, Joanna. I mean, I've met your mother in physical body, which is really something else.
So you know that I'm really tall.
How tall are you?
I'm almost 5'11". I'm pretty tall.
Okay. Yeah. Your mother is tall, but I had taken, it was August 8th. This yoga studio, Lotus, sends an email that there's this breath work for the Lion's Gate that was happening on August the 8th. And I was like, I need a gate. I need a lion and a gate. And I took this and I took that honestly, that day transformed me, like really transformed me. And I was like, what just fucking happened? And yeah. And then it was just like, yeah. And then I just couldn't stop taking your class. Right?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
We met. It was magical from there. So so I started doing the breath work, went to LA, did my training with this, intense guy. Because in LA, it's like every studio and every block has a breathwork class, like every hour on the hour. It's a big thing out there. And Toronto's obviously always like 5 years behind. But in any event, I was like, this is a thing. And it really did merge the masculine and the feminine for me. It really unlocked like much deeper layers of wisdom and psychic function. And I just thought it was so beautiful. And as soon as I started doing it myself regularly, I started having very clear visceral connections to archetypes. I started to feel my archetypal maiden and my archetypal father and my archetypal mother. And it was just clear to me that there was this connection from the state of consciousness that you achieve in breath work, this kind of psychedelic state, which is just kind of your neurons are interacting in different ways. It's disrupting our normal egoic consciousness. Like, you look at children and how full of wonder they are and how the world looks so bright to them. Well, there's an actual biological reason why as adults, the world starts to become duller and more confined. It's our brain literally starts pruning the synaptic pathways to just conserve energy. And so breath work is a really visceral way to just blow that back up in the same way that, LSD does, except you don't have to take LSD, in my opinion, in the Aquarian age. So there's this connection with archetypes, which are these fundamental patterns that exist, that's like sort of above the human psyche, that is shared across cultures, across times, that are ideas that are prior to us, that are patterns. And I felt that I could access the imprint of these archetypes. And so I started teaching them. I started teaching them along with the breath work. And this is kind of my work. I think the overarching theme of my work is that humans in the secular age we have a serious meaning crisis. We have a serious connection crisis where we used to have meaning mediated through God or through love of country, like, the epidemic of depression and alienation is because there's some part of the human soul that basically the liberal capitalist order can't speak to. And I want to do it in a way that has no weird, hierarchies and lying about, crazy stories and you have to go to hell. That really is rooted in finding the individuated genius that I do believe lives in every human soul. Oh, sorry if that was a mouthful.
No, that's so beautiful. That's so wonderful. And now I did describe Japji, but what is it to you and when did you come across it? And yeah.
It's funny because when you played that little clip of Japji, I had like a PTSD to the only time I really recite all of Japji is when I'm at 3HO. Have you ever gone, by the way, to summer or winter solstice? They have two big events, one in summer, one in... Oh, you gotta go.
I know.
Gotta go. I actually, I don't know if it's ever going to be the same because of this whole Yogi Bhajan thing. And there's all this hand wringing, but eventually they'll do something. So So the winter one is in late winter. It's in somewhere in Florida. It's a weird place in Florida, but it's nice and it's warm in the winter. And then the summer one, which is really like the place to go, is in the high desert in New Mexico.
Right.
And, you know, you kind of have to like rustle out of your tent, and it's freezing cold in the high New Mexico desert at 3:30 in the morning. And everybody goes to like the giant tent. I mean, there's like 10,000 yogis there. And the person who's leading sadhana, because in Kundalini Yoga, we do sadhana at 4 a.m., always starts with reciting Japji. So the cool thing about it, first of all, the origin story of Japji is that Guru Nanak submerged himself in a river for 3 days and then arose. I mean, I'm sure it's apocryphal, but, you know, symbolic myths. He arose and spontaneously started chanting Japji. And it's the sound, the spontaneous sound of the soul awakening. So that's a cool thing. But the other thing is that mantra literally means mind wave. And it's the fastest way that I know of to point your mind in a direction that's going to lead towards love, unity, creativity, prosperity, and it's a technology. And they also say that everybody has a puri of Japji, because there's 40 puris, I believe. It's at the beginning of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib, which is the holy book of the Sikhs, although Yogi Bhajan also taught that Japji actually predates the Sikhs, and the Sikhs were channeling like more primordial yogic ancient wisdom. But of the puris, everybody has one puri that is like their personal puri, that is like their soul's message. And the way I kind of stumbled on mine, which is the 24th puri, is for a long time, I actually slept to Japji. I would just put it up on Spotify at low volume and sleep to it all night. And I would always wake up to the 24th puri, which is also called the billionaire's mantra. It's Bahota Karam. So that's a fun thing that you can do, is figure out which one. There's different ways of doing it, but I do like the technique of just like put it on all night and see if you can notice a pattern in which one wakes you up.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Number four is one that, you know, I have resonance with. And then sometimes like the way I learned it was just, there's like a call and response that Sanatam Kaur does with a man. I don't know who it is, but and then just reciting it 11 times, like doing it 11 times. And it was like, I was like, I didn't want to do, not that I didn't want to learn this prayer, but it wasn't like Sopurik, which is like a repetition of, you know, of one verse, I guess. This was like, nothing really repeats in that prayer. And I was like, how am I going to learn this? And then when I learned it, it was like, I always knew it.
Totally.
And like, it's so bizarre, you know?
And Sopurik is like that for me too. I actually recite Sopurik every morning, just once. It's long. So that's the prayer for that, a woman praying for men. And I've recited it after tuning in for, it's got to be like 10 years at this point. And it's crazy. If you hear me chant it, I had a roommate a few years ago who said it was like davening. I'm Jewish, and there's like Orthodox Jews, the way they daven, and it's very just like low and fast and blah, 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 blah. And so I do that. And, you know, I send it out to my dad and my nephews and my boyfriend and just all men. And it's a beautiful practice. But it also, I can feel, Yogi Bhajan calls it the permutation combination. The way that your tongue is hitting the roof of your mouth when you're chanting these old sounds really does stimulate your brain and stimulate these acupressure points in the roof of your mouth, which are connected to these higher frequencies in your brain. And it's pretty damn cool.
Yeah. Sopurik. I've chanted Sopurik so many times. It was the prayer that, I mean, for many reasons, but like when I was, you know, doing the advocating for comedy, it was like the prayer to give to the community. Cause, you know, there's a lot of men in the community, but also the prayer is also to have to have a stronger connection to God. But I chanted it so many times, and I'll tell you, like, I just saw it unfold every time, you know. I haven't chanted it. I think I chanted it on the way home from my parents today, because it was just on my phone. And I was like, I got to get out of this funk, you know, to just, you know, I don't know, put a call out, you know, to the men to be warriors. Like, we got to wake up. We got to wake up. We're sleeping. Like, it's insane. So according to 3HO, the Aquarian age began on November 11th, 2011, which marked a profound evolution in human consciousness. What do we know now about the Aquarian age and when it actually started? Has that changed since, because this is on the 3HO website. So when I was, going there, I was like, oh, well, I kind of know a little more based on
Yeah.
classes.
Sometimes they say December 11, 2011. Sometimes they say December 12th, 2012. I think it's just because it was like 11, 11, 11, 12, 12, 12. And Yogi Bhajan was into like palindromes. So yeah, I don't think that's really probative. And I will say as a broader comment about that in addition to the stuff about Yogi Bhajan and some of my teachers, I have read the work of a scholar recently called Philippe Desleep, and he goes into some of the origins of some of the teachings Yogi Bhajan brought, and basically some of them, some of them were kind of made up. So one of the things that's like a longer project for me, and why I'm building out my own understanding and my own technology that is from my soul, is that some of the stuff he just fabricated from whole cloth, which is frightening to hear. Some of it's not. Some of it, like Set Kriya, like I have maintained my own personal database of Kriyas and their effects since I started practicing, because I just thought it was so cool how like I could do a Kriya called Kriya to make you enchantingly beautiful in the morning, and then like 5 guys would hit on me. I'd be like, that one works. So I've tracked their effects. So all of which is to say, some of this, 11, 11, 11, I can't find much objective backing for it besides the numerology, which is another Kundalini thing. I think the bigger sort of harbinger of the Aquarian age, although no doubt the Aquarian age was on its way at 11, 11, 11. But I think this grand mutation, great conjunction that happened on December 21st, 2020 was much more, there's a lot more robust information there. And that was, for me, the true shift into the age of Aquarius. Of course, it's more of like a high watermark. When you shift from one age that's 800 years long to another, it's not like an overnight thing where it's like, oh, today it's winter, tomorrow it's a slow burn. But at the same point, if you think about how different the world is now than it was even 10 years ago, like you kind of start to get a sense of what is going on. And given the rate of exponential change, I think, people who were born in, let's say, people in the 1950s, people in the 1900s, if they saw how they lived, it would be a little different, but they would kind of get it. They'd be like, oh, you have these things called cars and television sets. But if people in the 1950s like could telescope into what we're doing in 2021, I mean, like TikTok and algorithms and NFTs and Bitcoin, like they would have not the slightest clue what the hell was going on.
Yeah. And then I just wonder too, like sometimes, like people in contemporary world will, like, we believe like, oh my God, we're so advanced. And I think it's just it's an accumulative effect of technology. Like maybe this story, but this Shani Mutri, I'm probably not pronouncing his name right, but he was talking about the Bronze Age or the Copper Age, one of the two ages, where he was saying, his whole talk was about vibrating at a higher frequency, right? And this is what we need to be doing to make this ascension, right? Ascension into this golden age that is emerging, right? That in that period, yogis who were vibrating at a high frequency would go into the pyramids that they built, and they would broadcast signals, right, to other yogis in other pyramids, because he was saying that at that time the world was working, like it was, and there was all this good energy. These yogis were broadcasting the stuff off, and it made me realize, like, oh my God, what do we broadcast? Like we use these 5G towers and this technology. Sure, a lot of it's really great stuff, but it's like, imagine that. And I was like, that's advanced. Not that we're not. I mean, I believe that we're advanced in some way, but I think we're so in this. We're just at the death of the ego in this Kali Yuga, which this yogi introduced me to, that like we're in that hell coming out of it. And yeah, anyways.
It reminds me of I was talking to a friend of mine a while ago about the Fermi Paradox, which is, we know, given the infinite expanse of the universe and the multiverses, that there is for sure intelligent life elsewhere in this universe. There's no question, like, just given what we know about the scope of the universe out there, it's such a low probability. And then the question is, well, why haven't we heard from them? And my friend was basically like, why aren't we interested in talking to ants? Like, these intelligent civilizations are not impressed by us. And I was like, well, but we have all this technology and art and beauty. And he was like, it's thumbs all the way down. We're just busy with our hands. We're just, we're on our phones, on Pornhub and TikTok. And I think that's true to a great extent. We have this technology, which is an externalization of, powers that we've always had, like telepathy, the ability to communicate through vibration. But our vibration hasn't figured out how to use it to a really beautiful effect yet.
Or like it forgot, that's the whole thing, even about like kundalini yoga, like all these ancient technologies that were hidden or lost, so that's what this guy was saying, that during the Bronze Age, like it was like this amazing time, and then it was lost,
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I think that, I do believe in some way that we're advanced, but right now it's like, we're just, right now it doesn't feel like that at all, especially because like all of the technological innovation that has occurred, maybe most recently, we could have all done it, with respect to the earth. We could have done it because, like you've heard, like Henry Ford, the first car he designed was made out of hemp, right?
Yeah.
Like when hemp cars collide, they just do this. So it's like the executives are like, no, we want to do metal. So it's like I remember watching Roberto Benigni at, I think, Casino Niagara do a lecture. I thought I was going to watch him do comedy, but he did this incredible monologue of stuff. And he's like, look, you're and the knife came out of your hand. Like all these technology. Yeah. Like you said, they're just all part of us. They're not separate. And I think sometimes that's where our ego gets into trouble, because we've say that everything around us is separate, including the earth, including everything, that these technologies are separate. They're more powerful than us, but they are us, So how do we stop them from running away from us, and that's, I think, the dilemma that we're in right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So probably the lodestone concept that I teach on is self-sovereignty. And that is like the only way to get out of the algorithm is to hack your own algorithm. You got to basically wake up in the morning and brainwash yourself in a very beautiful way that you choose. Otherwise, you're going to go on your phone, and believe me, there are many forces that are very happy to brainwash you. Many. And you see this happening. People have basically outsourced their own intelligence to the media. Like, I catch myself doing it sometimes where I'm like, what's my opinion on this very strange thing? Let me read an op-ed. And of course, how I think about it is influence, but I think this is happening on a much more diffuse level where all of your perceptions of what's going on in the world. It's like the second pandemic, right? The false news, the weaning away of intelligent function and critical function, all of the things that we're not talking about, particularly in Ontario, which my friend in the US was telling me, now everybody's like, what the hell is going on in Canada? Like, they're on a third lockdown. They fenced off the cherry blossoms. Like, what the fuck?
Oh yeah. I don't know how much you've seen, but I've seen government documents that are outlining the plan, and the plan has happened. It's happening. Yeah. It's everything they've outlined in the plan is coming. So it's that's where I'm, as I'm a researcher, right? So, and especially doing this podcast, when, for me, it was I can't remember when it was sometime in the summer, late summer. I'm with some friends, we're high on marijuana, and there was a magician there. I know this sounds hilarious, but there was a magician there who I know, and he lays out the most magnificent, grand conspiracy about what's happening. And then all of a sudden I saw the Matrix. I saw it and I understood it, because I'd been told, I went to see the Matrix a couple of times in the movie theater, but I was high the whole time, every time. And I don't remember the film. But that night I saw it. And I have this one healer, Nancy, who always would talk about, like, this is simulation. We're in a matrix. Somehow my brain couldn't get it. And then I saw it. And then I realized, oh my God, I saw what I believed. And then that moved. And I was like, okay. And then it opened me up to all this other information. But here I am now, where I'm like, I got to come back to the center. It was what Maria were talking about. She's like, we got to come to the center, because like when I started looking at all this other information, I just asked God, show me the evidence, like keep showing me the evidence. I asked God today, show me the evidence. Just, you know what I mean? Like, and whatever story, maybe it's a karmic story. I need to do a sesh with you because I think I just have a lot of questions right now about it. But yeah, anyways, this is such a fascinating conversation. I can't handle it. So astrologically speaking, what occurred on December 21st, 2020 for our viewers, and how was last year different than this year, both numerologically and spiritually? Numerologically, why can't I say some of these words? But yeah, like anyways.
Okay, so the grand conjunction. So actually, I'll send you a link so that because I did a little. I don't know if you watched it. I did a little free class in breathwork meditation, breaking down, because there's kind of a lot of information about this grand mutation. I'm happy to send you a link, and your readers can download it for free. But I'll give you the like high level, too long, didn't read. So basically, Jupiter and Saturn, who are the biggest planets, and they're called the Great Chronocractor. They kind of have the biggest influence on human fate. Jupiter is concerned with expansion, prosperity, benevolence, and Saturn is like taskmaster, limitations, time. So it's kind of like the two dimensions of mortal existence. So they conjunct every 20 years in a different sign, but they also do a sort of cycle where they go from meeting in one element to another element. So basically, Jupiter and Saturn have now shifted into air signs from earth signs. They met in earth signs for 800 years. And the last time they met in air signs was, and specifically now they're going to be in Aquarius until 2159. And the last time that happened was in 1405. So 1405 is like the high European Renaissance. You think about Magna Carta was signed, and it was the beginning of representative government and the rule of law, which was very revolutionary for these, feudal European lords and barons. Beginning of globalization, Marco Polo going to China along the Silk Road, the founding of the first universities in Bologna, and the Sorbonne in Paris. So, and just like this zenith of human art and creativity. And now we're in another type of renaissance, and we're moving from density, from what I call naive materialism, where you think that the only thing that is real is what's visible to the human eye, which is a very silly idea. Because if you look at even, I've been studying this a lot lately, Isaac Newton, who, discovered the principle of gravity, was an alchemist. He was, and this is like a mainstream thing. He was a total occult magician. And he was just looking for laws to explain the Hermetic principle of as above, so below. And so the whole idea that like there's some hard differentiation between magic and science is just a lie, because the greatest scientists, do you think Einstein was not a wizard? Like, do you think that you could see the theory of relativity with their eyes? So for me, this age of Aquarius is really about merging the knowledge and the technology and the ability for everything to be transparent. There is no hiding secrets anymore. That's why you see all these spiritual gurus and their misdeeds coming out. Fusing that with the power of the intellect and embodied wisdom and magic, which was the age before the age of Pisces. So age of Pisces was also heralded by a great conjunction called the Star of Bethlehem. And the sort of high water mark of the age of Pisces is, of course, the Judeo-Christian story, which is basically accept God, submit to God, believe in God. And that's the central mode of human existence. So I believe, I submit, that's Piscean age. And now we're in age of Aquarius, which is I am. It's about your self-sovereignty, your own potency, your own sort of wild expression. And the reason why the conversation we just had about media and technology is so relevant here is that I find most people have opinions or impulses that aren't really theirs. It's like implanted somewhere, and disentangling yourself from that is, first of all, very hard, very painful, and most people don't have tools to know even how to do that. You know, how do you get out of the matrix? Well, I guess you could hang out with Sandra and smoke some weed. You can do breath work with me. But I do think that a lot of us will be going into these dark nights of the soul that are specifically meant to show you how to sort out what is true from what is false. It's actually the full moon in Scorpio right now, as we're talking, April 26th.
Tonight's the full moon. No wonder I was depressed today.
And full moon in Scorpio. Scorpio is like some dark shit.
Oh, it just feels so dark. Like I literally am. You can't even imagine what I'm imagining. You can't even, I'm sure you can imagine. But, you know, I wanted to say that I have done your breath work high and it's amazing, but I don't get high all the time. I just want to say you founded the Baroness Institute. And what are the principles upon which that institute are founded on? I know you talked a lot about that, but just maybe reiterating that.
Yeah, so I teach magical leadership. So I decided to figure out the ways that I actually have been able to create and manifest all of the biggest miracles in my life, all of the biggest breakthroughs, all of the prosperity, you know, attracting the love of my life, everything like that. When I looked at it, I was like, it was actually just magic. So how can I teach this to people? So I teach women who are usually women, not always, predominantly women who are very high achieving, very smart, know how to like do the things, how to basically quantum leap, how to see themselves, to see above their own story, to see like the full legend of their life, to see how they are meant to be a node of human consciousness. Because I think, you know, every soul that's here, and certainly every soul that like comes forward to do this work has like a piece in the evolution. And in order to find that, you connect to your full slate of archetypes, which we do in my group program, which you took, Alchemical Legacy Activation. So you have a full palette of archetypes, and many of them need to come out and be honored in order for you to move into your next evolution. We do divination, which, you know, through tarot, interpreting dreams, breath work. And divination just means literally, if you believe as I do that everything in the world is kind of contained within this great mind, everything is contained within this great intelligence, the more we can expand our symbolic vocabulary through connecting to our dreams, through connecting to our imagination, the more God we can bring into the world. It's literally divination, making divine. So we do fun stuff like that. But for me, it's always about merging the practical and the mystical. You know, I'm trained as a lawyer. I don't teach things unless they make sense to me. Although a lot of it has been realizing all the gaslighting that's gone on, right? Like when I learned Isaac Newton was a warlock, I was like, hey, what the hell? They've been lying to us about a lot of stuff.
Oh, I know. And when and now it's just like, you the further you go, you're just like, oh my God, the lies. But you know, it's just teaching us like the illusions that we have. And if we can accept that and admit that, yeah, I believe that shit. Now I don't. I was one of her first students. So what do you call us? We're the
founding or the beta immersion group. But I call you guys like the founding legends.
And definitely I uncovered, which was totally a breakthrough, that legend of my life, like and then this course and like, you know, working with you got me from, you know, the work that I was doing for the comedy community and the movement that I spearheaded and helped launch into now, okay, I'm still doing some of that work, but like, what's next, you know? And that honestly is like, has, you know, everything that we laid out, you know, I'm doing. And I think that that's so super cool.
I'm doing it with you right now. I'm so proud.
I know. That's so good. Well, thank you so much, Joanna. If you have any closing remarks, let me know. But you can visit her website at Elevate with Joanna or baronessinstitute.com. I'll include those links at the bottom of the episode. And and, you know, get in touch with Joanna if you want to experience something incredible. It will just open you up on levels that you didn't know exist. So thank you so much for being with me tonight virtually. I hope one day I'm going to meet you in physical body.
It's going to happen. It'll happen soon. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.